possible. Shahid Akhtar.
Well, Jack, you certainly know how to embarrass a friend publicly.
I was too conservative.
Let me first of all say how pleased we are to welcome you today on this bright sunny day when you must have had deep conflict in your souls, whether to be outside in this brightness or in here. But I welcome your dedication. I commend your dedication that you were able to join us today. And on behalf of the association, I welcome you. Long time ago, when I was just starting my career in journalism, I learned the usefulness of the 5 W's and 1 H. Approach every question, they told me, with these why, where, when, who, whom, and how. And I found that it's so much easier when you're going to start something like this and there are lots of questions. What is it that this association is going to do? How did this come about? Who contributed to its creation? What is it that, whose help we will seek? Then I think I will take at least that approach which I learned in my younger days. Who we are, Jack Stevens and I, we go a long way, sometimes longer than I like to think. We always were appreciative of the personal friendships that we saw between members of the two communities, our own friendships. But what always rankled us, that any time we heard the news, any time we mentioned the two words of Jews and Muslims together, suddenly the perception in the minds of many was not reflective of the same friendship that people had on a personal level. The image that came up when the Jew and Muslim were uttered in the same breath, that image was not very flattering. That image stereotyped and created a very negative perception vis-a-vis the interrelationship and the interaction between these two people. And we thought, is there anything we can do about it? Two people, and especially two people with no roots in religion or politics, we thought that no, perhaps this issue should be left to the people who can actually make a difference. The large organizations, the leaders in politics, in religion, in social agencies. But then we found that our strength was that weakness. Our strength was that we were so ordinary. We were just your everyday person who happened to be Jewish, who happened to be Muslims. We did not lay claims to being religious, but we knew that there are lots of religious people whose offices we can count on. We were not in politics, although when we first announced this idea, lots of people who were interested in politics, they gave us a hand in this. Our being very ordinary members of the two communities, whose only claim to being a Jew and a Muslim was that we were born, we were raised in these communities without any claim of being very religious, very practicing religious, or in any way having any other claim to speak on behalf of the two communities. And then we thought that if, as ordinary members, we do not do something to counter this perception, because that perception exists for your everyday people. When you're discriminated, no one asks you, when was the last Friday you went to a mosque or the last Saturday you went to a synagogue? The discrimination comes to us because that identification sometime is my identification as a Muslim or my identification as a Jew, regardless of how practicing I am, how rigid I am, what is my politics. And we thought that we will do something, because sometimes silence can be gold, but other times silence can also be steel that is forged to make chains which keep us in those negative stereotypes, in those caricatures sometime when our interrelationship is mentioned. when the two words are mentioned together. So we decided to proceed with it. In the first meeting we held in January, we were very encouraged by lots of people, by people like Mel Shipman, by people like Karen Mock. And I don't want to start giving acknowledgements now because it will be a very long list. But we got a lot of encouragement. We certainly got a lot of discouragement too. Just day before yesterday, without compromising the confidentiality of the gentleman who called me and said, don't rush into it. Don't rush into it. Wait till things settle down. Why don't you unite your own community first? And I said, thank you, I'll call you back in about 1,000 years. Because we cannot wait indefinitely for things to settle down. Who knows when they will settle down? We have the opportunity now. As a matter of fact, sometime the harder the things are, the bigger the problems, the bigger the import of some problems, the more the need that we should start a dialogue like that. Not a debate, because we have not invited you here to participate in a debate saying that you are wrong and I'm right, pointing fingers at each other, laying blame at each other. The purpose of this organization is simply this. We will try to make every effort to bring Jewish and Muslim communities together in Canada and do all we can to counter the negative perception and stereotyping that exist. Now, how will we do that? We will do it again in a very simple way. We do not have the power and authority, but we know a lot of people who have the power and authority. We know people like the members of this panel who can raise these issues of people coming together in their unilateral organization. These issues can be raised in the mosques and synagogues, that the need is not in promoting our own unilateral existence, but also inviting people to come and give a hand to the other community. We will do it by involving the members of the media. We will ask them to make it a mainstream topic. We will invite people who are involved in politics so that they can raise this issue as a mainstream issue. It should not be something that only Jews and Muslims should be interested in. Canada can be a model for all to follow, where we can work together on common concerns. When one community is discriminated against, the other community should be able to say, you are not alone in this. We will come and fight your fight with you. When people, instead of resisting each other's efforts, they can discover common grounds. And on those common grounds, they can help each other. Canada has that model where the climate exists to promote cooperation and understanding and a depth of feeling and the knowledge, most of all, knowledge about each other's communities. We cannot blame history for everything. We are not responsible for what happened historically, but you know what we are responsible for? We are responsible for our children. When my children grow up, I want them to be proud of their identity, but at the same time understand the identity of the group which has been portrayed as an adversary in their minds. I want them to reach out. I want them to feel that in their Eid festivities and in their Yom Kippur festivities, they can go together. They can celebrate together. They can come together in a way that they will not feel an adversarial relationship with each other, but a friendship and cooperation and a commonality of cause. We think that to fight a public perception, the only way that you can counter a public perception is that you go to the public. And you go to the public by approaching the people who have access to public. We will not keep the ownership of this thing to ourselves. This is not something that is my cause or Jack Stevens' cause. This is your cause. Take it with you in whatever capacity you are, as a leader of an organization which is doing human rights work, as a senior rabbi, as a chairman of the Palestine House, whatever your capacity in that unilateral existence, take the message with you that there is also need to reach out and give a hand to people. That when I suffer, then the pain should be felt by my co-convener. When a Muslim family is made the target of discrimination, a Jewish organization should also come ahead aloud and say that we will not tolerate this kind of discrimination. When there's anti-Semitism, in mosques we should talk about that anti-Semitism, that why is it that our counterparts are being made target of that. This is what we are planning to do, not us but you. Because today's format is that at each table, during the break, we would invite you to bring your coffee or refreshment. Oh, by the way, there are lots of refreshment in the kitchen. Karen has hidden them over there. She didn't want anybody to eat those things at this time. But bring your refreshments to your table. Stay at the same table. As you will notice, purposely, we requested you to not to stay with the same group that you came with. Mingle. Talk about your personal experiences with each other. Talk how you have faced discrimination or how you can cooperate in promoting an understanding and knowledge about each other. Talk about things that a structure of an organization like this should take place. Talk about the role of media. Talk about the role of politicians. At each table, there'll be a facilitator, and we will ask those facilitators to just make sure that the discussion stays focused on the positive. Because we are not here to indulge in any way in a finger-pointing match. Debates polarize. We are not here to polarize or get polarized. We are here to find common grounds, and let's try that. With that, I would like to invite the first member of our panel, and very briefly I'll tell you how Rabbi Dow Murmur, how we got to know the senior rabbi. Last year I was in Israel regarding a lecture on at Haifa University about a Muslim poet who had written a lot about Bani Israel before the creation of Israel. And I was the guest one evening of a young rabbi who introduced me as Rabbi Murmur, and we had wonderful discussions, very understanding, very cooperative, very knowledgeable young man. When I came back to Canada, at Rashad Saleh's Palestine Center, Jack Stevens and I, we went to meet Faisal Husseini, who was visiting Canada in those days. And I saw a gentleman there with a striking resemblance to that young Rabbi Murmur I met in Israel. So I asked him, I said, do you know a Rabbi Murmur in Haifa? Yes, he said. Are you by any chance related to that person? Yes, he said. I was beginning to feel that the conversation would just stay up to yeses and will not proceed. Then he finally told us that he was his son. And like father, like son. So we found that when we spoke with Rabbi Murmur, that he was also very keen, very eager to lend us a hand in this. Now we know where Rabbi Murmur got his dedication, without saying which one I'm talking about, father or son. So with that, I will ask Rabbi Murmur to share his thoughts with us.
Thank you.